I can't believe I ignored this for 60 years. And if you're honest, you're still ignoring it right now. You wake up, you check your phone, you handle what's urgent, you survive the day, and you call that a life. The truth you don't want to hear is simple. You are not tired because life is hard. You are tired because you are living against yourself. Most people don't burn out from effort. They burn out from pretending they like their job, pretending they love their routine, pretending they don't feel empty. You've trained yourself to accept a version of life that slowly drains you, and you call it responsibility. I did that for 60 years. I told myself I was being practical. I told myself security matters more than meaning. I told myself this is what adults do. But adulthood without awareness is just slow surrender. You think you have time. You think you'll fix things later. You think one day you'll start living intentionally. You won't, because the habit of postponing yourself becomes your identity. The first lesson I learned too late is this: comfort is more dangerous than failure. Failure wakes you up. Comfort lulls you to sleep. You chose the stable job instead of the difficult path. You chose silence instead of confrontation. You chose peace over truth. And every time you avoided discomfort, you shaved off a piece of yourself. You didn't notice it. It felt mature. It felt wise. But it was fear, dressed as responsibility. Real life example: you stay in a marriage that quietly kills your spirit, not because it's abusive, not because it's dramatic, but because it's empty. No growth, no depth, no honesty, just routine. You tell yourself at least it's stable. Stable is not the same as alive. Most people fail because they confuse safety with success. You must change this, not by blowing up your life tomorrow, but by telling the truth in small moments. Admit when something feels wrong. Admit when you've outgrown a place. Admit when you are shrinking to be accepted. The second lesson is harder. Nobody is coming to save you. Not your partner, not your boss, not your children, not even time. You secretly believe life will eventually reward your patience. It won't. Life rewards clarity and decisive action. I spent decades waiting for recognition, working quietly, being reliable, being the good man. Do you know what that got me? More responsibility, more expectations, more silence. People respect boundaries. They exploit passivity. If you never demand more, life assumes you're satisfied. Most people fail because they wait for permission, permission to earn more, permission to change careers, permission to leave, permission to grow. You are not stuck. You are compliant. And compliance feels noble, but it is often cowardice. The third lesson is about identity. You don't suffer because you lack potential. You suffer because you built your identity around roles: provider, parent, employee, friend. You forgot to ask who you are without those labels. When the kids grow up, who are you? When the job ends, who are you? When your body weakens, who are you? Most people collapse in midlife because their identity was borrowed. They built a life that looked respectable, but it wasn't authentic. So when something shakes it, they panic. I ignored my own voice for 6 decades. I knew I wanted more depth, more solitude, more honest conversations, but I chose noise because noise is easier. You must learn to sit with yourself without distraction. No screen, no alcohol, no constant movement, just you. If that feels uncomfortable, That's the point. Discipline is not about waking up at 5 a.m. It's about facing yourself without escape. The fourth lesson is about money. Money is not evil, but your relationship with it reveals your fear. Some of you chase money because you think it will buy respect. Others avoid money because you think wanting it makes you selfish. Both are rooted in insecurity. I spent years under earning because I didn't want to seem ambitious. I told myself I valued simple living. In reality, I was afraid of being judged. You don't avoid wealth because you're noble. You avoid it because growth demands visibility, and visibility invites criticism. Most people fail financially, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack self-worth. They don't believe they deserve more, so they sabotage opportunities. They stay small. You must change your internal ceiling, not by chasing status, but by deciding your time is valuable. If you don't value your time, no one else will. The fifth lesson is the one that hurts the most. Loneliness is not about being alone, it's about not being understood. And most of you are lonely because you never showed who you really are. You gave the world a filtered version, a manageable version, a polite version, and then you wonder why no one truly sees you. Real connection requires risk, risk of rejection, risk of disagreement, risk of being misunderstood. I avoided deep conversations for years. I kept things light, practical, safe. Now I sit with memories of conversations I never had, words I never said, apologies I postponed. You think there will always be another dinner, another weekend, another chance. There won't. Time doesn't steal your life suddenly. It erodes it quietly. One ignored feeling at a time, one delayed decision at a time, one compromise at a time. You look back and realize you didn't lose your life in tragedy. You lost it in repetition. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Some of you use your children as an excuse. You say you sacrificed for them. Maybe you did, but sometimes sacrifice is a mask for fear. It's easier to say I did it for them than to admit I was afraid to try. Children don't need a martyr. They need an example of courage, of honesty, of self-respect. If you teach them to suppress themselves, they will, and they will call it adulthood. Another uncomfortable truth: you don't lack discipline. You lack emotional regulation. You scroll because you can't sit with anxiety. You overeat because you can't process stress. You overwork because you can't face emptiness. You blame motivation, but the real issue is avoidance. The older you get, the harder it becomes to admit you wasted time. So you double down. You defend your choices. You criticize younger people. You cling to routine, not because it's right, but because admitting regret would break your ego. I broke mine late. It was painful, realizing that decades passed while I was asleep in my own life. But pain is honest, and honesty is freedom. You are not too old to change direction, but you are too old to keep lying to yourself. Stop pretending you're fine. Stop pretending you're fulfilled. Stop pretending you don't crave more depth. Look at your daily routine. Is it aligned with who you want to become, or is it designed to keep you comfortable? Comfort has a cost. It costs growth. It costs passion. It costs respect, especially self-respect. When you repeatedly ignore your instincts, you teach yourself that your voice doesn't matter. After years of that, you don't even hear it anymore. That's what happened to me. Silence inside, noise outside, applause from others, disappointment within. You don't need a dramatic reinvention. You need brutal clarity. Clarity about what drains you. Clarity about what you tolerate. Clarity about what you fear. Write it down if you must. Where are you settling? In your relationships? In your work? In your health? In your standards? The world will not demand your greatness. It will happily accept your mediocrity, because mediocre people are predictable. They don't disrupt systems. They don't challenge norms. They consume. They comply. They fade. You are closer to the end than the beginning. That's not pessimism. It's mathematics. And mathematics does not negotiate. You can spend the next decade repeating patterns, or you can spend it correcting them. But correction requires discomfort. It requires conversations you've avoided, boundaries you've delayed, habits you've excused. It requires looking in the mirror and saying, I allowed this, not they did this to me, not life was unfair. You allowed it. Ownership is heavy, but regret is heavier. I ignored this for 60 years. I ignored the quiet voice that said, this isn't it. I ignored the tension in my chest, the boredom, the subtle resentment. I convinced myself that survival was enough. It isn't. At the end of your life, survival will not comfort you. You will measure your life by courage, by truth, by alignment, by the risks you took, not by how safe you played it. You don't need more information. You need more honesty. Right now, there is something you know you should change, a conversation, a boundary, a decision. You're postponing it. You think waiting will make it easier. Waiting makes it permanent. One day you will sit quietly, your body slower, your circle smaller, your time visibly limited, and you will ask yourself one question: why didn't I act when I knew? Make sure you don't have to answer that the way I do, because living with regret is quiet, but it is relentless. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. The only question left is whether you will keep ignoring it, or whether today is the first day you stop.